Clown phobia. For most people, clowns represent fun and laughter. But for someone with a fear of clowns, it's the exact opposite. Colorful wigs, exaggerated makeup, frozen smiles, and faces staring with wide eyes. For some people, these things are not entertaining but frightening. Clown phobia refers to an intense and uncontrollable fear of clowns. This fear often begins in childhood after a negative experience. A scary scene watched on TV or a clown encountered at a birthday party can plant the foundation of this fear. In some cases, it can develop spontaneously without any trauma. This phobia can be triggered not only by a real clown, but also by a drawing, a toy, or a movie character. The person perceives a clown's facial expression as fake. A smiling face that hides what it truly feels may seem dangerous. This fear can also affect social life. Children's parties, circus shows, or even some advertisements can act as triggers. While many people see this phobia as a simple discomfort, for some individuals it can cause real panic. Hole phobia. There are certain surfaces that make some people feel uneasy, even by just looking at them. Hole phobia is the intense discomfort felt towards small holes arranged closely together. Even though these holes are harmless, the brain associates them with danger. Lotus seed pods, sponge textures, honeycombs, or porous stones. These can be unbearable for someone with hole phobia. The sight may cause itching, nausea, headaches, or a sense of panic. This discomfort cannot usually be explained logically, but its physical impact is very real. Scientifically, hole phobia is not yet an official psychiatric diagnosis. However, millions of people around the world exhibit similar reactions to these images. Some theories suggest that such hole patterns resemble the skin textures of poisonous animals, wounds, or diseases encountered throughout human evolution, causing them to be perceived as threats in the subconscious. It may force people to avoid common visual triggers in daily life. Social media content, nature photos, or certain advertisements can easily trigger it. And for those who struggle with this phobia, calling these images just holes is far from enough. Cheese phobia. Cheese phobia may sound strange, but for some people it is a true nightmare. Melted mozzarella on a pizza, cheddar in a grilled sandwich, or a simple piece of white cheese at breakfast. For someone with this fear, these are not just foods but threats to be avoided. The phobia is usually not limited to a specific type of cheese. Smelly, moldy, melted, or holy cheeses. Any of them can trigger the fear. Cheeses that stretch, look sticky, or have pores can cause strong physical disgust and psychological discomfort. The exact cause of cheese phobia is unknown. In some cases, a cheese that was forcefully eaten during childhood or a food poisoning experience may be the root of the fear. Some individuals develop an unexplainable reaction simply to the sight, smell, or texture of cheese. This phobia can complicate social situations too. Ordering pizza with friends or seeing cheese on a breakfast table can be distressing. Some people avoid not only touching cheese but even hearing its name. Cheese phobia is not something to laugh off. It is a genuine fear that can significantly affect daily life. Fear of crossing the street. People usually become cautious in heavy traffic, but for someone with a fear of crossing the street, even an empty road can be terrifying. This phobia is not about physical danger but the fear of losing control. When stepping onto the road, the person imagines a car suddenly appearing, being unable to stop, or failing to coordinate their own movements in time. Even knowing these thoughts are irrational does not stop the fear. The phobia is not limited to pedestrian crossings. Underpasses, overpasses, or areas with traffic lights can also trigger anxiety. It is more common in people who have experienced traffic-related accidents, but it can also develop without any prior incident. This fear can seriously impact daily life. Simple tasks like going to school, work, or the market become stressful when crossing a road is required. Some people take long detours or avoid going outside altogether. The fear is not just of the road, but of the moment of taking action itself. Flower phobia. Flowers are usually associated with peace, beauty, and elegance. But for someone with a fear of flowers, they are not aesthetic, they are unsettling. This phobia stems from intense discomfort caused by the appearance, smell, or texture of flowers. Some people fear specific flowers, such as rose thorns or the shape of orchids. In other cases, any flower can trigger the phobia. The scent of a flower may cause headaches, its sight may cause nausea, and its texture may cause disgust. This phobia is usually not caused by childhood trauma. It is more related to subconscious perception distortions. For some individuals, the complex structure of flowers or their between living and non-living appearance may feel threatening. It can be very challenging socially as well. At events, hospital visits, or during springtime outings, avoiding flowers becomes necessary. Sometimes even floral patterns on clothing, photos, or wall decorations can trigger the fear. Flower phobia is a fascinating defense mechanism against one of nature's most innocent elements. Fear of developing a phobia. The fear of developing a phobia may sound paradoxical, but psychologically it is very real. It is the fear of being afraid of something. The person is not afraid of a direct object, situation, or creature, but of fear itself. This phobia is common in people with a history of panic disorder or anxiety. They constantly worry that another panic attack might come, that they might develop a new phobia, or that they might become fixated on a fear. Even the slightest sign of stress is interpreted as a warning. Someone with this phobia may fear crowds, silence, or nothing at all, but the thought, "What if I become afraid now?" is enough to create unease. This persistent anticipation traps the person not with real danger, but with possibilities. While most phobias act as protection against the outside world, this one is triggered internally. Avoiding fear only strengthens it. This fear can affect relationships, daily decisions, and even physical health, because the possibility of fear is experienced as if it were real. Sleep phobia. For most people, sleep means rest and renewal. But for someone with sleep phobia, sleep is a dangerous loss of consciousness. They believe something bad will happen the moment they close their eyes. Their heart might stop, they might lose control during a dream, or they might never wake up again. This fear becomes stronger when sleeping alone or in silence. The person develops resistance to falling asleep. Over time, this leads to chronic insomnia, loss of focus, physical exhaustion, and mental disorders. The root of this phobia can sometimes be traced to past trauma, such as a loved one passing away in their sleep, the fear of losing control, or obsessive thoughts. The real fear is not sleep itself, but the feeling of being defenseless while asleep. That is why the person tries to stay awake all night, leaves the lights on, or frequently changes places. Sleep refreshes the mind, but for someone with sleep phobia, it becomes a nightly risk. Fear of being without a phone. An empty battery, no signal, or forgetting the phone at home. For someone with this phobia, each of these triggers serious anxiety. This fear is extremely common today because a phone is no longer just a communication tool. It has become a map, a clock, a wallet, a planner, and a social connection hub. When a person loses their phone, they feel as if they've lost control of their daily life. Being without a phone feels equivalent to being isolated. What if someone calls me? What if there's an emergency? What if I reply late? These thoughts constantly occupy the mind. This leads to panic, restlessness, and lack of focus. In severe cases, even a few minutes without checking the phone becomes unbearable. People develop habits like carrying chargers everywhere, constantly checking signal strength, or refusing to go out without their phone. This phobia goes beyond digital addiction. It reflects the belief, if the connection breaks, I break too. Balloon phobia. Balloon phobia is the fear of balloons. It is mainly defined by extreme sensitivity to the possibility of balloons popping. When will it explode? How loud will it be? The uncertainty keeps the person constantly on edge. The fear usually begins in childhood. A sudden balloon explosion at a birthday party can be traumatizing for a small child. Over time, the reaction becomes permanent, and the person avoids not only popping balloons but even intact ones. Their shape, the tension in the rubber, and the sense that they could burst at any moment all increase anxiety. Some people cannot touch balloons. Others leave any place that has balloons as quickly as possible. This phobia causes social difficulties too. Birthday parties, children's events, store decorations, or celebrations all become threats. The fear is not about physical harm, but the inner panic triggered by sudden, unexpected moments. Sea phobia. From above, the sea may look blue and calm, but for someone with sea phobia, the underwater world is dark, unknown, and frightening. This fear is triggered especially in open waters where the bottom cannot be seen, or when facing an endless body of water. Sea phobia is not about drowning or physical danger. It is fed by anxiety toward the unknown. Not knowing what lies beneath, the possibility of a sea creature suddenly appearing, or the sense of an endless void below can cause intense panic. Even someone who can swim may refuse to enter the sea. Shallow coasts may be tolerable, but deeper areas become overwhelming. For some, even watching underwater footage or ocean documentaries can be a trigger. The fear grows with imagination, because what truly scares them is not what is visible, but what is unseen. The deeper it gets, the stronger the fear becomes. This phobia may not involve real danger, but it can completely alter one's relationship with water. Mirror phobia. For most of us, mirrors are ordinary reflective surfaces, but for someone with mirror phobia, they do not reflect reality. They reflect a threatening unknown. This phobia is defined by the deep fear of one's own reflection or the possibility of seeing something else in the mirror. Mirror fear becomes stronger at night or in dim light. The person avoids looking at mirrors, especially when alone, and does not want to be in rooms with mirrors. The idea that something exists behind the mirror, the fear of seeing a sudden movement, or feeling disconnected from one's reflection all feed the phobia. It is often linked to horror movies with paranormal themes. A childhood event, a scary story, or a subconscious image may be the starting point. Some people avoid not only bathroom mirrors but also display windows or reflective screens. Mirror phobia can even distort a person's visual relationship with themselves because the fear is not just about reflection but about confronting it. The mirror does not show reality. It makes the person imagine what they fear most. Fear of making decisions. In daily life, we constantly make decisions: what to wear, what to eat, where to go. But for someone with decision-making phobia, even these simple choices can be serious sources of stress. The fear is not about making the wrong choice, but about taking responsibility for the decision. This phobia may be connected to low self-confidence, past mistakes, or extreme perfectionism. The person struggles with thoughts like, what if I regret this? What if this choice leads to something bad? As a result, the decision process becomes prolonged, postponed, or handed over to others. Someone with this fear may spend minutes choosing from a menu, change their mind countless times while shopping for clothes, or delay an important career step for years. Making a decision means carrying the consequences, and that is what frightens them. This phobia makes it difficult to move forward in life. The person avoids risks, misses opportunities, and chooses to stay still rather than decide. Decision-making phobia is not the fear of choosing but the fear of living with the choice. Crowd phobia. Crowd fear is not simply the fear of open spaces. The real fear is being in a place where escaping or getting help during a panic moment feels difficult. Therefore, the person avoids crowded streets, shopping malls, public transportation, or large open areas. This phobia often develops after a previous panic attack. The person fears experiencing the same situation again and gradually begins avoiding more and more places. Over time, avoidance becomes so severe that some individuals cannot leave their homes. Crowd and open space phobia directly affect social life. Going to work, school, a cafe, or a movie theater, all simple activities may feel suffocating. Even being alone with someone can trigger anxiety because the person worries. What if something happens to me? Who will help? This phobia is rooted not in places but in the fear of losing control. When outside, the person feels both physically and psychologically vulnerable. Even when the outside world is safe, the mind convinces them that staying inside is safer. Baldness phobia. Baldness phobia is the discomfort or fear felt toward bald individuals. It may seem funny or irrational at first glance, but for some people it causes serious stress and avoidance. The fear usually comes from subconscious associations. Baldness may remind some individuals of illness, aging, or authority figures, which triggers discomfort. A memory involving a cartoon character, a teacher, or an older relative can also be the root of this phobia. Someone with this fear may avoid being in the same environment as a bald person, feel uneasy in social settings, avoid eye contact, or keep conversations short. In severe cases, even images, movies, or advertisements containing bald characters can trigger the fear. It is one of the hardest phobias to understand from the outside, but the fear felt by the person is very real, and their body responds physically. The mind labels a simple physical appearance as an unexpected threat. Book phobia. For most people, books are sources of knowledge, stories, and inspiration. But for someone with book phobia, books symbolize pressure, stress, and threat. This phobia is a fear directed at books themselves, their content, or their symbolic meaning. Book phobia usually begins during school years. Books forced upon students, fear of failure, or exam pressure can create a negative bond with books. For some, books represent authority. The fear of reading something wrong, misunderstanding, or not being good enough fuels the phobia. These individuals may feel uneasy when they see a book, avoid reading, or feel uncomfortable even in a room filled with books. Sometimes the fear is limited to certain types: religious texts, long novels, or academic books. The fear does not arise from knowledge itself but from confronting knowledge. For some, this confrontation triggers feelings of inadequacy. For others, fear of change. Although it may seem unusual from the outside, for someone with book phobia, books are not just objects, they are sources of discomfort.